All right. Call the May 22nd, 2024 General Board meeting to order. Can we have a moment, Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Silence. Thank you. So now, roll call. So Tom Panetta, Earl Webb is excused, and this would have been his last meeting, and I'll speak to that shortly. Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, Barbara Curtis, ex officio Andrew Williams, Austin Calaman, Robin Davis, and Mike Hoffman, our solicitor. And of course, always with Sharon. So, so today is going to be election of officers, but first we have a couple of items to get through. First, I think it's first Austin's board meeting back since the baby, and we all want to thank Austin for everything he's done and wish him well, and Shelby. I want to take a second to thank Earl Webb. He couldn't come to my roasting, so he's going to have to get it online. You know, Earl Webb is probably the reason why I'm on the board, because 6 years ago, he had the audacity to go, when I was running, and speak to my two ex-bosses at GE. And, you know, he was GE also, and get recommendations and references, and then report on that to the public. And I really cannot thank him enough for that. We're gonna miss him on the board. He was always a thoughtful voice, and he really, you know, he was one of the people who you could argue with and then walk away from and go and have dinner. And, you know, that is something I think we had common coming from our GE days. So Earl and Christy are gonna be moving to Ohio. Christy's mother is 92, and, you know, it was time to, be with the family over there. So we're gonna miss him, and I hope to see him back. And then, welcome to Bob Heffernan. Where is Bob? Oh. So Bob is gonna be sworn in as our new board person, board of directors person. So Bob comes with a tremendous background. I worked with him for a period of time on Planning Commission, and he has great experience in issues that oh yeah, that's, I'm sorry, glad you put that up.
And with me on the, oops.
All right. So if anyone didn't hear, you know, he's worked with press on the as part of the BPW mitigation committee.
And with me as part of the wastewater options committee.
The alternate technology, it's true.
Yes.
So maybe I shouldn't welcome Bob, he's already been here. All right. Moving along. So we've been asked to move item 12 up. Is it 12?
Yeah, item 12, so do after 9.
Yeah. So we're gonna move item 12 off, up to after 9. It should be relatively quick, and that's for convenience. So, moving along. So we have the consent agenda. Can we turn the lights on back here? I don't want to fall asleep during the middle of this.
I don't know which one it is.
Thank you. So we have the consent agenda, which is the vice president's report, the meeting minutes, and the treasurer's report, and the assistant treasurers. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
So it's 4, 1 absent.
Excuse me, Chair. I'd like to remind you all to please speak into your microphones. People are.
Are you not hearing me?
It's difficult.
I will yell more.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Allergies have really wreaked its toll. So then, moving on, the Inframark report. So, Jeff?
Mike is with us via Zoom.
Oh, okay. Oh, hey, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so regarding the headworks, we had planned the flow shutdown for May, but there was a delay in the shipping of the baffle. We're supposed to ship end of last week. It hasn't been received yet. And coordinating with the contractor, we wanted to utilize that time for the contractor to get in there and prep for the baffle installation during the trial. So we're pushing that off to next week, hopefully, pending the receipt of the baffle. Pistogrid is also supposed to ship with the baffle, so still have not received that. And then just alternatively, we did make the trip to Clareton, PA with BPW staff and GMB to look at the JWC van screen. Looked like a good piece of equipment. Any further discussion on that?
No, I'll handle that one, Mike.
Okay. Related to the filters,
Mike, we're getting a tremendous amount of feedback.
Make them louder, that feedback's gonna be worse. I don't know what happened, but.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Related to the filters, you had the Xenon report, that's dated several weeks ago. With the repair of that solenoid valve that we talked about last month, the TMPs did come down for train 4, and then we are scheduling a recovery clean for train 2 next week and train 4 if we can get to it, or train 4 the following week. And we anticipate with those recovery cleans, everything will be in the green again. And then regarding solids handling, Jeff is coordinating with Kubota to get the thickener membranes pulled for testing. And then the only expense related to this project will be for the contracting of a crane to pull the membrane. So Kubota's going to replace the membrane on their dime. They're sending a tech out to assist us, and that's all covered by Kubota.
When will that be happening, Mike? We've been waiting for that for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, we were waiting till warmer temperatures came, and like I said, Jeff's been coordinating with Jeff from Kubota, or Kevin from Kubota, and we just have to get some dates aligned and get the crane set up. So we're anticipating
Dates for those next month. I just have to see when we can get a crane on site to coordinate with the availability of the tech from Kubota.
pump stations. We did receive the new pump for PS18, and the materials to eliminate the junction box. Staff are planning on working on that next week. Also related to Pump Station 1, BPW issued a PO to Caswell to replace the wet well piping in PS1 and also add bypass valves and fittings. That's not scheduled yet, just send over the PO this week. And then projects that have been on the board for a while, the foam pump and sludge hauling, liquid sludge hauling, receptacle projects are to start next week. The materials were all received, so they will be in next week. The chemical containment resealing project is completed, and that's in the chemical building that they resealed, cleaned and resealed the caustic impound. And then repairs to the support columns in the maintenance office is scheduled for June 21st. And then finally, we have BioAir coming in end of this week to service the odor control system at PS4, Pump Station 4. And that's all I had. Any questions?
Mike, last time when we did the walk down at the wastewater treatment plant, one of the things we discussed was obtaining a motherboard for the UV lights.
Yes.
Has any progress been made on that, or have you been able to find one?
So I'm still waiting. They just shipped the relay boards that we ordered previously, but I am in contact with the rep there to see if we can get a spare for the main display as well. I'm just waiting to hear back from him, or if we have to find it out aftermarket, like another source.
So just for the board information, the motherboard is obsolete, and there's a concern that the new versions are not retrofittable in the old ones, so is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Any questions?
Yes, I noticed that you're talking about spraying weed killer at a bunch of the pump stations and doing weed whacking as well as weed killer. And to the extent that any of those are near wetlands or bodies of water, that's a big no-no. Weed whacking should be sufficient unless there's a lot of poison ivy and your people need to be protected from it and they don't have the proper gloves or anything, then you might consider it, but weed whacking is sufficient.
Okay, yeah, we will take that under advisement and discontinue that.
Any other questions for Mark? Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
So, next is receive the president's report. So this last month, attended the wastewater treatment system quarterly walk down with Austin and Mike from GMD and Robin. Oh, that's right. Austin was off on vacation. Robin. We've met with the county on the wastewater treatment plant. Things are still progressing, but we're by no means ready to go to a public workshop. We're hoping June, July time frame for that. Austin and I routinely meet every month with the mayor and the city manager, and that occurred. We had the joint workshop, and Burton was one of the topics on that, but there were other ones. And the next one is the 29th of July. Austin, is that correct? Yeah. attended mayor and city council. And then we've had ongoing meetings with the Burton subdivision folks. And at this point, you know, where are we? And that's it. Questions, comments? So on that note, I think we are up to stepping down and election of,
Unless you want to skip my report.
General manager.
oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, we're not used to you not being here.
Yeah, well, Robin was here, the meetings were faster, so I guess I talked too much. So construction still continues for the Donovan Smith project. We had our progress meeting. There is a large push to start with the services. They are experiencing some more frequent issues with the drain field. So right now, Teal's scheduled to start that work the beginning of June. So we're going to wait and see how that does, and hopefully jumping services over will start alleviating some of those existing systems. As Inframark did mention, I did make the trip out to Pittsburgh to look at an alternative for the Headworks project. I'll fill you guys in with that later. We did take delivery of our Terex line truck after 2.5 years of waiting. We met with GMB on the stormwater in Powelltown Village, which came up during the joint BPW and city session. We're going to go ahead and camera all that, and then we're going to give all that information over to GMB to analyze. Don't foresee much of anything. It's all looks to be all RCP, reinforced concrete pipe, but we're going to camera it, get everything over, and then ensure that all of our stuff's covered when the city does their project. We also did a site visit with Richard, Barbara, myself, and Robin and Mark Chura over to the Art de Grand property. That came up in conversation. Ring Lardner provided a presentation, I believe, back in March. And that's an open space project that they're working on. And if the board were to be interested in some sort of easement to build an alternative well site or to do new wells on that site. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. I know Press wanted to do another visit as well. So we can most certainly do that. It is, you can't really explain it until you actually go back there and see it. It's kind of like just a pocket of heaven back there. But anybody that wants to go back, they're more than happy to take us back and kind of go through everything. Yeah, you just got to coordinate with your availability. Staff also worked with legal to finalize the GRIP funding letter that was sent off for the AMI project. It was just a slight revision to it. In the end, the only real difference between the last one and this one is they're actually covering 50% of the first 5 years of ongoing costs. So it's actually an additional savings in the AMI project should something happen, and the DOE provides that funding to us, but we'll wait and see. We also met with DNREC officials on nutrient offsets, which we met with Inframark on as well. And I think that hits on everything. Sharon, do you want to hit on, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike. So from an email perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people know because this is when I was away, there's a new ruling on PFAS, so that's coming down the pike, or PFAS and lead and copper and cross connection control. So there's going to be a lot of information that we're sending out. We're going to try and space everything out so it's not just jamming information down everybody's throat. So there's going to be a mailing out for lead and copper, and that'll be coming out through 120 Water.
Expect that mid-June.
Mid-June, that's what we're shooting for. We'll also have information out there on PFAS and the UCMR5 testing, and we will also have some additional stuff coming out for cross connection control.
Yeah, and just along those lines, those last 3 items, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of unknowns. Some of this stuff is first of a kind in the industry, and all of our peers are trying to understand, especially like PFAS specifically. So once we gather more information, we'll figure out whether we need to do workshops or how we're going to get the information out. So and just
For a lot of public participation.
yeah, there's a lot of information, but don't be scared by the volume. We're all in it together. So whether you're a big utility or a small one. All right, then at that point, it's time for swearing in, and officials. So,
You do them all at once?
Yep, they have Tom, Richard, and Bob, we're gonna go ahead and swear in.
Hi.
I'm Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Can you raise your right hands?
Bible.
Well. Other hand,
Other hand,
other hand, Tom.
left hand on the Bible.
Yeah, raise your right hand, put your left hand on the Bible.
Raise your right hand.
Repeat after me. I state my name.
I,
Hi, Richard Nichols.
Do proudly swear or affirm
Do proudly swear or affirm
to carry out the responsibilities of the office of a Director of the Board of Public Works,
to carry out
the office
responsibilities in the
Director of the Board of Works,
Right,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
freely acknowledging the powers of this office
freely acknowledging the powers of this office,
flow from the people I am privileged to represent.
flowing from the people I am privileged to represent.
I further swear or affirm
I further swear or affirm
always to place the public interest above any special or personal interests,
to always place the public interest above any purpose,
personal interest,
personal interest,
and to respect the right of future generations
and to respect the right of future generations,
to share the rich historic and natural heritage
to
share the rich and natural heritage
of Delaware.
of Delaware.
In doing so,
In doing so,
Doing so,
I will always uphold
I will always uphold
and defend the constitutions
and defend the Constitution
of my country and my state.
of my country and my state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You're official.
I wouldn't
Hey, Bob,
recommend they form.
Bob, come take your seat up here now. Yeah, but I got to. Oh, okay.
Got to bring his baggage.
I think right now you guys have to select the seats that you will hold within the board. So president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. So would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that Tom Panetta be president.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So just in terms of order, so now that the president, Tom, you can take the gavel again. And so now you can handle each office one by one. So the next office is a nomination for vice president. Press, you were making a motion.
Second. Aye.
Just to confirm, everyone make sure your mics are not muted and make sure you speak into the microphone going forward. Thank you.
secretary's next. Anyone have a motion? Well, I nominate, I guess I can't.
Now, I nominate Presley as secretary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Treasurer,
I'd like to nominate Richard Nichols as treasurer.
all those in favor, or second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Assistant treasurer,
I'll nominate Bob as assistant treasurer.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mike, at this point, we do the liaisons, the ex officio to planning commission, because that has to go before the city.
Yes, that's correct.
So Any nominations for, so that has been Barbara for the last year. Any nominations for ex officio to LPC?
I nominate Bob Heffernan.
Those in favor? Bob, do you
Aye.
accept?
Oh,
Okay. And the two liaison positions, the liaison to the city mitigation and the liaison to the financial, they should be done now too?
Yes, you might as well.
Okay. So first up is the liaison to the city mitigation team. It's currently Press, who leads our mitigation team.
No, I'm not deep.
I don't think you have somebody on the mitigation.
no, no, I don't think we do.
I attend.
Austin's been attending.
Yeah.
Let's hold that in abeyance then. And liaison to the city financial committee. Richard, do you attend the cities? Yeah. So Richard's been that position.
I nominate Richard to continue in that position.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So that takes care of the swearing in and the officers. So next up is 9, the amendment to the Inframark contract. Austin, you want to just explain what that is? And
Yeah, so this was actually, this is the amendment that was proposed by Inframark. All of you have seen it, comments have been provided. Everything has gone back and forth, I believe. We're good on our side from board comments, Mike's comments. And this is in reference just to the existing contract and has it in.
Correct, that's right.
so, motion to accept the contract amendment.
That motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, 12.
All right. Item 12, open forum, general discussion on Mitchell's Corner easement. So this is the area in front of the Wellfield and,
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background, this was on last month's agenda, and there were comments that were provided to us. We had, and Mike has had conversations with the developer, their engineer, and their attorney. Our comments have been answered. You've had clean documents. They were provided actually yesterday. I believe the city blessed it pending our comments, and the county blessed the Jones Farm piece. And with this, all these documents would go back to all the parties, signed, approved, and so forth.
Just to build off of that, there are 4 documents that are currently before the board for approval. There's a permanent easement agreement across the Wellfield property and a temporary construction easement across the Wellfield property. And there is a permanent easement across the Jones Farm property and a temporary construction easement across the Jones Farm property. As Austin mentioned, this was presented to the board during your meeting last month. There were questions that were raised by the board that we took back. That information, the answers to those questions were actually circulated to the board, I believe, Monday morning. And then the agreements have been finalized consistent with those comments. So unless there are further questions, the documents are ready for review.
I had a question about the grading near the vault. I didn't understand whether grading will be done or whether it's just that there's going to be a fence there that'll keep people from falling into the vault.
Right, there will be some, my name is Cliff Mumford, I'm an engineer with Davis Bone and Friedel. There will be some grading there, and that's the reason for the temporary construction easement. So there'll be some grading back from the shared use path that we have to install for DelDOT to tie into existing grade, but we won't go above the valve vault lid.
Thank you.
And all of it will be contained behind.
Just to bring it up, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but, you know, one of the items we discussed at the last meeting was whether the fence should be in front of the vault or behind it. Because it's a pinch point, the path narrows down to 8 feet. And I know this is not our jurisdiction, DelDOT's, but our vault is right there, and putting a fence at the edge of the vault means you have an 8-foot barrier and our telephone pole. And just,
If you put it behind it, it makes it an obstruction also, even though it might be a grade,
why would we,
because it's a different type of surface and so forth.
oh, but that's true of, you know, and it's a ground,
Just one reminder that make sure you speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Because they don't have a wide range.
I don't feel strongly about it. It was just, you know, one of the things that, as a bicyclist, an active bicyclist, you know, it seems like that's a tight pinch point. It's DelDOT's call, but, you know,
We have to make that decision, whether we want it one place or
if
another
anyone
at
wants
this
to
point.
discuss it, or
I
it's shown on
guess-
the easements right now.
So the only thing to keep in mind, and so the request before the board and the board's role in the request pertains to the easement area and the granting of the easement. The actual design and location of the improvements for DelDOT or for the shared use are going to be subject to DelDOT's design review. So the question for the board is granting the easements, the permanent easement and the temporary construction.
that can be worked out later.
Correct. That's between it's up to DelDOT's review. That's right.
You have any choice?
Tom, I just mentioned that the 8-foot section is right before the entrance to the Wellfield lane, and there's a crosswalk there, so it may be a good feature to have. We're kind of next down and gets people's attention that I'm about to cross this driveway where there could be trucks coming in, and bicyclists should be aware that they may need to stop at that location.
Have you been on the bike paths? Never mind.
You know,
No, I understand. It's not our jurisdiction.
Right,
I just,
my thought was that the fence, if a bicyclist bounces into the fence, it's not horribly injurious, is it? I mean, it's not like a solid steel fence. It has a little bit of give to it, doesn't it?
over, but
Huh? I mean, I would rather not have the vault outside the fence for security purposes.
Staff's recommendation.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Bob, you asked the question of do you have a choice? So the way that these property acquisitions work when you deal with DelDOT improvements is they start with what they call kind of an arm's length discussion, where they approach the property owner and say, this is the project, this is what we're looking to do, and this is the impact, and you have a discussion on that end. Should the property owner say no, so we're not going to do it, and it's a DelDOT transportation improvement, then the next step moves towards the condemnation and eminent domain where they'll condemn it. Obviously, they try to exercise all options to avoid that, but so at the end of the day, if it's a transportation-related improvement, which was shared use paths, that is the purpose of this improvement, that's the track where they go. The question when it comes to the board and what staff focused on was ensuring that if you were to grant the easement, making sure that it does not impact your existing utilities, your rights to access and utilize them, and if there are any quote-unquote damages to BPW infrastructure and property, that be corrected, fixed, and accounted for. And so that's where they will be responsible for relocating the fence. They'll be responsible for any impacts to landscaping. They'll be responsible for replanting, repaving, and that's what all those discussions based on last month were aimed at confirming.
That's kind of what I figured. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
all right, do you have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the contracts, the easement documents as proposed.
Just for the record to confirm, those are the 4 easement agreements, 2 permanent easement, 2 temporary construction easement.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll abstain, Tom.
Thanks for accommodating
Just
me.
for, because I really haven't reviewed it.
That's
in
totally
depth.
understand. So it's 4, 1 abstention. All right, moving back up. So item 10, open forum and general discussion on 4th Street final application submission to DHSS and DNREC with the potential request for an additional streets within the Burton subdivision. So, Austin, you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah, so the original submission, which was the NOI, Notice of Intent, that was submitted to DNREC and DHSS for review and consideration, only included the improvements from Savannah Road to the intersection at Burton, essentially. Through the conversations that kind of occurred over the past couple months, some that I was a part of, some that I wasn't a part of, it became apparent that there were some concerns in the area. And so we actually, when I came back, I was given a couple tasks to do with staff, which was to install the auto flusher, water meter and hydrant testing, and collecting a sample piece of pipe in the Park and Johnson kind of area. That was all completed. One was the auto flusher was installed on May 2nd. The samples and the testing was done on May 9th. And then we also were tasked with trying to get an idea of what DHSS and DNREC, what was feasible as far as some sort of supplemental funding. So what we did was we reached out, and I kind of figured that they were not going to really give us an answer. It was kind of got to be a feeler. Now, I'll preface that, and most times you can go after what is considered a supplemental, which is a 20% adder to whatever project you're doing. So I kind of went in the framework with that. Now, I did reach out to them directly and kind of asked a more direct question on how much funding they would provide. They basically encouraged us to submit a supplemental and have it reviewed by them, and then they would opine on it after the fact. So this process would be, should the board look to amend it, the supplemental would go in along with what was already submitted, which was the $5.5 million. That package would be sent off, revised and sent off, and then that would be in consideration for WEAC, which is the Water Infrastructure Advisory Council. And then they would give us feedback on, what the terms may be, what a financing rate may be, or what they will ultimately fund us.
And Charlie, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point to a description that Austin just gave?
Yeah, just one quick correction. When we submitted for 4.4 million. That's was in the pre-application. We immediately spoke to them like a month after that, and they said they would accept the 5.5. So if we add any additional work to the project, it would be 4.4 plus to get to 5.5 plus what the additional work would be.
The 5.5 was to include some more city improvements, correct?
Yes, that's right. We left out the sidewalk part of it, but then we put it back in. Yeah.
So if you were to do, for example, if there was a need or a motion to move forward with an application that would include one side street, for example, Park and Johnson, where we got the sample from, that works out to be, if my math serves me correct, an additional $3 million, and that includes both BPW and city improvements. All encompassing, it's about a 60-40 split. So 60% of the total, roughly $8.5 million, is BPW related improvements. 40% of that is city related improvements. The city related improvements are your curb, your gutter, your sidewalk, your pavement, BPW, obviously water, sewer, storm.
And just to clarify, the city portion, even though we would be going for SRF loans, that would be repayment by the city to BPW to cover that portion.
In some sort of financing agreement or arrangement, yes.
So the discussion, anything else, Charlie?
I didn't know whether you wanted me to comment on the pipe sample that was taken from the Park DuPont area?
Yeah, why don't you tackle that now?
Okay. You know, when GMB reviewed the pipe sample that was taken from the Park DuPont area, we found the pipe exterior to be in good condition, especially considering its age. We wouldn't say it's prone to breaking. That's an important point, because when we look at pipe replacement projects, the history of water main breaks and its susceptibility to breaking is a driving force in determining whether a pipe should be replaced or not. The board should be happy to know that pipe breaking in your distribution system is rare. We have very rare occurrences of pipe breaking, and the ones that we have experienced through the years, those pipes have been replaced. I would say that this one is not prone to breaking, so that's a good thing about the condition of the pipe. Yep.
Can you comment on the min wall thickness?
Yeah, so when we looked at the sample, there's no loss of wall thickness, which is another key component of when we look at pipe samples to determine whether it's corroding from the outside, because oftentimes the soil conditions or other chemical reactions with the outside of the pipe begin to affect the wall thickness. And we didn't see that. We felt like, you know, given its age especially, but just in general, the condition of the pipe on the outside was good, and there was no apparent loss of wall thickness. No exterior corrosion. So, you know, that loss of wall thickness and exterior corrosion are other signs of potential failure that we take into consideration when we talk about replacing pipes. That said, there is tuberculation on the inside of the pipes. And for people who may not be aware of the word tuberculation, what that is a chemical reaction that occurs in metallic pipes like iron pipes that just creates, you know, oxide buildup inside the pipe, and you can see it. I think the word is kind of an onomatopoeia. It's tuberculation kind of sounds like what it is. It just looks like bubbles and growths on the inside. So there is some tuberculation. It's not unusual to have tuberculation in iron pipes, and especially these cast iron pipes, which this pipe is. It's cast iron. It's certainly not unusual to have tuberculation. In some of the newer ductile iron pipe situations where they were cement lined, you don't have tuberculation. But on these older cast iron pipes, you do have tuberculation. And the older the pipe, the more chance of more tuberculation. So when you have tuberculation, you have to consider how bad is the tuberculation compared to other pipes in the system. I would say that the tuberculation in this pipe is what we reasonably saw across the system. Not in every single iron pipe, but in a lot of iron pipes. And
can we have order, please?
And when you have tuberculation in a pipe, you have a situation where you might have some flow capacity diminishment. In our opinion, based on the tuberculation we saw in that sample, we feel like the flow capacity issue isn't being caused by the tuberculation in the pipe. It might be more to do with the service pipes leading to the homes, if indeed there is any reduction in flow capacity. So just a few other notes about the pipe sample. It is cast iron pipe. It is over 100 years old, at least the section on Park Avenue. When we did our assessment study, we were able to break it down that cast iron pipe in that section was installed somewhere between 1904 and 1922. So it's over 100 years old. The section on Johnson Avenue that we were also talking about from Park to Johnson is a little newer, but it's over 75 years old, sometime between 1931 and 1948. The 4-inch diameter is smaller than the typical new residential main that we would install. If we were to do a new street project, we'd use an 8-inch water main. Obviously, the 4-inch is smaller than that. And just keep in mind that that section of pipe that we're talking about on Park Avenue from 4th Street to Johnson and on Johnson from Park to DuPont is in relatively close proximity to the 4th Street project that Austin and I were just discussing. So I think that summarizes everything.
But that's the reason why this whole discussion is happening, because at the end of the day, you will be in for it. And as far as the supplemental ties into the fact that you'll be in for it, and this could be a project that would tie off of the existing scope of the project, which was
Question from the board?
Charlie, could you explain the difference between what you see when you have a section of pipe versus what you see when you have a coupon?
So a coupon, when we talk about the phrase coupon, it's usually when we're installing a valve. And you can either install a brand new valve or you can install an insertive valve, which is, we can use them as permanent, but oftentimes they're temporary. And when you insert a new valve or an insertive valve, you go in through the top of the pipe. And in order to get the valve mechanism down into the pipe, you have to remove a coupon, which is usually a circle. Depending on the size of the pipe, it's like a circle and it's got a little hump on it because the pipe's got a little hump on it. That's a coupon. That's not as representative because it's not nearly as big. The sample that we got on Park Avenue, I want to say it's probably at least 2.5 feet long, and it was cut directly out of the pipe. So it was a pretty representative sample as compared to coupons.
All right, I think the main discussion we want to have as a board here is, so the topic is what, if any, additional funding should we go for? And sounds like the staff's recommendation is to go for Park from 4th to DuPont around that little piece of Johnson. And that would come to
roughly 8.5, not getting into the minute dollars, with a 60-40 split for board and city.
So that would be going for an additional $3 million or so, which is over what they said the 20% guarantee was, but it's pushing the ball, and Austin don't let me put words in your mouth, you feel comfortable that that would go through. And if not, we'd have to readjust.
Yeah, so the project favored well when they did the grading, and so I tend to believe that it's a continuation of that project. You know, you can talk about, you know, the age of the pipe, the size of the pipe, and there's a whole bunch of different things that you can throw in there. At the end of the day, when you look at it, it's a size limiter, being 4-inch. You have the condition of the pipe, the age of the pipe, and it ties into the strategic plan of, you know, at some point in time, iron pipe needs to come out and you're going to replace it. Whether that be with cement line ductile, whether it be with PVC, that's the basis behind it. And I'll add, and Kim did a little bit of work here from a debt service perspective, but at the end of the day, we're in communications with UFS, who does all of our rate studies, and we're working through an analysis as we speak. So any change that would made in the budget would be accounted for in those discussions with Dawn and with UFS as it relates to our rates, and what the impact of this project, just shifting it time-wise, would be, should the board decide to do that.
Just to further clarify, that $8.5 million would cover the BPW portion, the city streets portion, with the city repaying the BPW over time for that funding, because we're the only ones who can go for SRF funding, the city cannot. And the other alternatives are not really conducive, so.
Is that accurate? That the city can't go for any other funding?
We're not the utility level, so
Okay.
this type of thing, we're not.
Well, they have to go to the open.
Yeah, you wouldn't get 2%. Yes.
And the other item, just to back this up, is that We don't know how much longer the Bank of Delaware is going to be offering 2% loans.
Yeah, I mean, just so everybody knows, it's actually a great program. So the state revolving fund gets replenished by those that are taking loans out. So as you're paying interest, you're replenishing the fund to do projects like this. And I tend to believe that the administration, you know, what's coming down the pike on the EPA side, there's a heavy push on the water side for funding. And we're looking for every opportunity. The tough part is, as many know, Lewes is very affluent, so it's not necessarily an easy community to go receive grant funds. But as it relates to low interest loans, typically it's, I would say this, Charlie, you've been here longer than I, have we ever been denied? So
that would be for future expansion, not this.
Correct.
As the funding became available, we could look to adjust the capital budgets.
Yeah, just holistically talking about the state revolving fund.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear. All right.
And both of the projects together, whether it's just the 5.5 or something more than that, up to 8, will involve a change in rates, increase of rates to cover the, if nothing else, the interest costs of getting that money on a favorable 2% or whatever basis, right?
So just to add context, so in '22 is when the board went back and looked, and when they looked at rates, they had a capital budget, and that was before the report came out that talked about iron pipe. Now, given anybody can go read the report, it's on our website. If you go back to June of '23 when the report was done, if you look at it, you're talking about a decent 50% of the pipe in this town is iron. And at the end of the day, you have to start somewhere, right? And you have to spend money to do it, and it's going to cost money to do it. In my opinion, our rates compared to a lot of others are fairly low on the water side, and so I believe that there's wiggle room as time progresses. It's a plan, right? And you have to start somewhere. And this project, really, the 4th Street project, was to give us as much data in one of the oldest sections of town that exist. Because when we do this project, you think of every street that we're going to pass and every street that we're going to get a sample out of, and that's going to go into, you know, call it the bank of all of our samples that we have for the planning of, you know, what I deem is a very massive endeavor for us. And it's not going to be just us. I mean, to put it frank, you have a lot of communities out there, but we're the first town in the first state. So we do have a lot of older pipes in this town in some of the older sections.
It's not going to be for free. It's a loan that has to get paid back somehow.
We will always try for free, not to say we will get for free. So.
Okay.
How much, if we add in this leg from the 4th Street project, how much time will that add to the construction period, and how much disruption to the streets being closed, what have you?
So obviously there's a lot of stakeholders involved with the 4th Street project, and the 4th Street project kind of started when the city had talked about doing a mill and overlay. I don't know if it's full rebuild, but also sidewalks in that general area. Obviously the board always likes to take advantage of those situations, and then that's how this project kind of snowballed. You have BB in there, so there's a big coordination with BB. And if there's any sort of shutdown with the bridge on New Road, which everybody's aware of, with that being shut down, there's also the added, you have a healthcare facility in the Politown Village area that access needs to be maintained to. So it's not going to be an easy project. It's probably going to rival 2nd Street. But, you know, at the end of the day, timing aside, I'm hoping that if we move forward with this systematically, I'm going to say, Charlie, what would you throw out there from a timing to add this in?
So I think the best case scenario for just 4th Street from Savannah to Burton would be over a 2-year time frame. The addition of the Park and Johnson piece, it's not nearly as difficult as the 4th Street piece, and it will take some time, obviously. I think the work can get done in 6 to 8 months. So, and it could be done concurrently with at least one of those phases of 4th Street.
And typically, when we do this, and we've done this on other projects, is when you go through the process, you go to closing, you have final design, you get your agency approvals, and you go through you'll go through the bidding process, you'll have a pre-con meeting. And typically, we do that with all the residents. I'm guessing this is gonna be a big project, so we're probably gonna have a lot of input. What we typically do is every month, we'll have a progress meeting so that everybody's involved and knows what the schedule is, and if schedules change and flip-flop. But we also lean heavily on the contractor on what they view. I mean, they're the professionals and how they do this, and timing-wise, if it's in the summertime, do we want to be in 4th Street in the summertime? Do we go to a side street in the summertime? All these different factors play into it. And so the schedule kind of develops as we move through that process. Charlie, I don't know if you want.
That pretty much sums it up. We have certain limitations of what we, dictating means and methods of the selected contractor, because if you do start to dictate, you take on some liability. So we have to be careful about that when the project finally gets let to a contractor and we have our pre-construction meeting.
Charlie, can I ask you a question on the streets?
Yeah.
You're not talking about improvements, replacement of like for like, so where there's sidewalks, you're replacing sidewalks, where there's not sidewalks?
Yeah, pretty much, Mayor. On 4th Street especially, there's a lot of sidewalk work that needs to be brought up to ADA compliance, so they may look slightly different, but they'll generally be in the same place, yeah.
But particularly as it relates to the side streets, you're not calling for this cost doesn't include sidewalks that aren't there now?
No, only what's there, yeah.
I think as form, as process, this is the application that goes to the state. The state comes back and says, here's the package we want to give you. That package comes back to the board, comes back to the city, and has to be approved by both entities, just as far as process goes.
In that process, we get the full application in by the 3rd week of June.
Yep.
And I would expect that if everything goes well, the closing of the loan would occur January of 2025, roughly. Just typical of other ones that we've been through.
And when would you know, when is the expectation of the state saying,
Package.
here's your package?
Yeah, I think that usually happens around September. It gives them, their staff, time to digest it all, figure it into all their budget, and come back with the plan. We've been seeing 2%. We could request a 30-year term.
Probably
Most time we get a 20-year term, but because the life expectancy of the infrastructure on this project will be greater than 30 years, we could request that too.
You can't guarantee anything, but you're pretty hopeful that they'll approve additional 3?
Well, you kind of put me on the spot now, but I would say that when Austin reached out last week to DHSS, I felt like they were enthusiastic about receiving the additional funding requests, but, who knows? We'll see.
We've reached out to them probably 3 times since we talked about a potential settlement. And we've tried to pull it out of them, but they just encourage you.
Yeah, they can't.
I mean,
The staff can't make safe one way or the other.
Sure, yeah. And you can't either. I know. I noticed that. Just the past history is.
I know.
Sounds positive.
My experience is they have a lot of money and they're in the business of lending the money, and they don't always have enough projects to fill out to fill out their whole budget. So we'll see.
The good thing is that even with the time delay, the water is low in iron, so we don't have to worry about that issue.
I think at this point,
That's not true. No.
All 6.
you'll have your chance to speak.
Thank you.
So I think at this point, we probably open it to public comment, and then we'll make at the end. So just to remunerate, so comments are going to be limited to 3 minutes. Austin will be timing. We'll give you a couple of seconds after to sum up, and there's no yielding time to someone prior. And we would also ask that, if what you're gonna say is similar to what someone else said, you get up, we're not trying to get up and just say that I agree with that. This way, we can keep things moving. Not that we're shutting anything down, but, all right. So, who do we have here?
Well, you may be surprised to see me back again, but it's
Would you
Carrie
introduce
Tripp,
yourself and address?
400 Park Avenue, here on behalf of the many citizens and friends of the historic Burton subdivision. Some are here today, some couldn't make it, but we were respectfully requesting the Board of BPW replace our antiquated water pipes and begin the process now by amending its current state grant. Everyone here knows BPW's role under the charter is to look for money, such as these low-interest loans, to support the work needed for the city's utilities, including providing water to its citizens. We are here today to show that we are BPW's only dance partner for that grant amendment. This is confirmed by GMB, BPW's own engineers, in its June 23 report, where it stated that decision-making for water line replacement was based on condition assessment, page 1, in determining, quote, where money is best spent, and when identifying the hierarchy of replacement. As to the condition, pipes many 100 years old, some of the oldest in the city. I want to thank Austin for his remarks that from a financial standpoint, doing the Burton subdivision now is ideal, along with the 4th Street project when the streets are already open and construction is already in place. But I do want to address what made our group moan on Charlie's comments. Our pipes are evidence of overdue replacement. My shirt, this photo, is a picture of the water main pipe sample BPW took at Johnson and DuPont. No one anticipated the interior of the pipes would look like this. They do start to deteriorate at 25 years, but this photo of this pipe taken that day is shocking in its depiction of deterioration. Rust buildup, pipe size flow restriction, it's all evidenced here. You can see that. And according to GMB, excessive tuberculation can have several adverse effects on pipe as well as the water quality delivered to the end customers, page 1 of its report. We appreciate that BPW tells us that it works based on science. And this photograph is evidence that you need to replace our pipes now. Charlie, if you think this is fine, I would like to see a photo of what you deem bad. Indeed, you can look at GMB's report, Appendix A, 23 report, that has samples of either the small cuts or the big cuts that you can compare. No one's pipes look as awful as ours do. The condition of our pipe dictates we take priority over other projects, even in the hopper for 2025. The photo on the back of my shirt and in front of you shows how those old pipes caused the worst rust water issues in the city. Even before this photo, GMB's report acknowledged that Park Johnson was on the list of the, quote, 3 worst areas observed as indicated by the dirtiest water and the duration of flushing, page 14 in the report, 2023. GBM goes on to write that Park Johnson exhibited much poorer water quality for longer durations than the other zones which were flushed, and this picture confirms that. BPW's efforts to mitigate the heavy rust water, which were discussed today, are not working. As posted on its website on May 17th, the water draw...
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes. You can finish your thought.
Sure. The water draw on the fire hydrant was 5.87 milligrams per liter. A second one was 3.46. If you don't think that's bad water, I will invite you to have a drink. This came from a house in Park. Tom, if I can approach. Tom, hold up water that you're drinking.
That is right out of the tap.
Well, look what we get to drink when it comes out of the tap. If anybody wants to drink, it's fine. Burton subdivision is unusual.
I'm sorry, that's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Well, you can have my 3 minutes.
Oh, no.
You cannot yield.
3 minutes.
I'm sure others will talk about the uniqueness of Burton and its minority status and the long promises we have had to get our water.
Just keep talking, Carrie, just keep. Hi, folks, it's nice to see you all again. I'm Brenda Afsel, I live at 418 Park Avenue. I'm going to be brief, and first I'm going to thank everyone in Austin, especially you for doing all this work and being a new dad. It can't be easy. Sorry, I can't see without my glasses. So we're well aware that BPW is very responsive to the volume of citizen complaints. Indeed, GMP's report uses water quality issues reported by residents as one of their determinative factors. Yet in the Burton subdivision, many of us have quit complaining, am I right? And have taken their own actions because they're so frustrated with not having a response. So we've done two things to make sure that you do hear from us. First, we circulated a petition. There are over 60 names from our community, as well as a second petition of friends of our community. I'm assuming I give this to Sharon? Thank you. That are requesting what Carrie just mentioned and what it sounds like already is happening with the amendment, and we're very appreciative of that. I want to remind you that there are 5 streets in this community, not just 2. So as we move forward, we're very happy to work with you and help you find additional sources of funding. We also did a survey at the very beginning to make sure that what we were hearing was shared by many people. And what we did find when we administered the survey to all of the houses in our community, and we had a very good response rate: do you drink the water that is provided by BPW at the tap unadulterated? 96% said no. Why not? Taste, odor, appearance, staining of clothes, staining of fixtures, staining of grout, cosmetic, my hair is a problem, brown bath water, you don't want to put the grandchildren in, I'm worried about my pet. Alternatives they use, 51% use bottled water on a regular basis, 64% use their sink or refrigerator filters, 3 people have whole house systems, and I've just heard of 2 more putting them in. You've heard me talk before about the health implications. Perhaps, Bob, you haven't heard me. I'm happy to talk to you if you would like me to tell you about the health implications of this. If anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to suggest that. I think I'll leave it there and let some of our community members that are, other than to say, how many are here from the Burton subdivision? Thank you for all you're doing, and we hope that we're going to be even doing more in the future. And we're very happy to help you with finding more funding. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for listening to us when we knocked on your door.
And I should have, in the beginning here, thanked both Brenda and Kerry for the open dialogue that we've been having. We don't mind pushbacks. We appreciate the open dialogue. And, you two are phenomenal spokesmen for your group. And I just hope you understand, we're looking at it holistically also. So
Let's just keep talking. Thank you.
Trina Brown Hicks, 504 DuPont Avenue, and I also represent Mrs. Smith, Lorraine Smith, 508 DuPont Avenue. And I don't have much to say, just to show a picture of my toilet. And also, one more picture. I'll get it. That's on the inside of the toilet. Now, I don't know if any of you have that issue where you live, but we do. And I think it's disgusting, and we should not have to live through this. We've seen many other communities around the United States have issues with people getting sick because of the water. So I'm hoping that this issue gets resolved sooner than later. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Schmidt, 423 Park. All right, and you saw this with me before, so I won't say. So I just have a couple things I'd like to point out in case about the test. So here is the fire hydrant that has been rated the worst in your testing. Okay, this is a famous picture. This is the famous picture or whatever. My house is right here, okay? So when they did the test, my house came out okay. And when they did the test at the fire hydrant here, it was 131 times higher than what it was in my house. And I'm just not sure that the test is telling you what's going on. Now, I read a little bit about coupons and doing coupons in your house and things like that. What they do is they put a piece of metal in there or something that absorbs what's going through the pipe over a period of time, and then they take it out, and then they tell you what the quality of the water is. What came out of my house was a little cup of water or something. Did you run it for an hour to pull all the water through? And I'm not saying you did it wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying this seems very odd that what came out of this is 131 times higher than what came out of my house. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm not putting that out. I'm putting that out as a question for thought. Then the second thing is, again, this comes from the internet, so how good is it? But what is the size of the pipe that is supposed to be there for a fire hydrant? My reading is to provide the proper flow. There's a term for it, but proper flow through the fire hydrant, you need a 5-inch pipe. Right, so what was ours? 4, right? So first of all, it's under, and then of course you have whatever, the size of the pipe might be reduced, okay, through the picture that you saw. And I only put that out. If that is correct, maybe that can help in the application. Okay, thank you.
I'm Elaine Zimmerman. I live at 418 West 4th Street. Just a couple of comments. I'm not part of the big presentation in back of me. I've lived in Burton subdivision for 36 years. We had a point at which we came back to the house and they had dug up, BPW had dug up our yard and our neighbor's yard because it turned out both pipes from both houses went to the same general pipe that went into the road. So I don't know if there's any more of that going on, but quite frankly, it wouldn't surprise me. This is the first time in 36 years that we have ever had, that I can remember, at any meeting, our whole neighborhood show up. We do not have a homeowners association, none of us want it. But this issue is the first time in 36 years that we have come as a community to a governmental entity requesting something that is that important to us. I worked on the Overfalls Lightship. I was the fundraiser. I went up to Dover and got lots of money. I would say to you, what I learned up there is I didn't ask for enough. So as you're planning this, take the oldest neighborhood in town, which does have the biggest minority population, and ask for more. Ask for all of Johnson, not just Johnson going up to DuPont.
If I can ask everyone, please.
I think that they can always say no, but what I learned is, oh, you're only asking for 8,000? Well, we have more. So I said, okay, 9,000. In other words, they do have money. And if it's at 2% and we got a longer time on that loan, it'll be at 2% for that many years. So I just think big. The other thing before I sit down is we had a street problem when we first got here. Jim Ippolito was on the board of the city council. They started a streets program. When we moved in, we were on a dirt road. 4th Street hadn't even been done yet. We had ponds in the middle of the streets. This could be a citywide commitment that we will get all modern piping, no iron piping, in the next 20 years. And start mapping it out and make a commitment to the citizens of this town. It's infrastructure. That is really big. Water is really big. We are in danger right now. Thank you.
Others? I'm sorry, the gentleman here is first, and then you're next.
I'm Paul Pratt. I'll make this really brief. My
intention was not to speak at this meeting, but something has been bothering me lately, and it's this. In 1970, this was a poor town. Lewes is poor. People who lived here are poor. But this is 2024, and I am not poor. I live on 4th Street at the corner of DuPont. And I can't understand why what's probably one of the richest cities per capita in Delaware. Are we not? Are we not one of the richest cities in Delaware? Well, I look around me and I see houses going in and it costs $3 million, and mine's now worth at least double what it was when I bought it. And I don't understand why we can't pay for the pipes that we drink the water out of ourselves if we have to. Why do we have to wait what sounds like it's going to be 10 or 20 years to get these pipes, which obviously should have been replaced by now, replaced? Why do we have to beg the money from the state and the feds? I don't get that. Someone explain that to me, please, now. I'm willing to pay taxes. I'll pay 50% more if it takes it.
Hi, Bill Bartolone, 419 Burton Avenue. I agree with everything that's been said today. We've had to put a filtration system in our house just for the sink. Now we're looking at putting in one for the entire house because our clothes are dingy, our water is dirty in the toilets, like the woman had the picture. My question is with all the funding going on in the federal government, is there any effort to get some federal dollars to do this for safe drinking water?
I think Austin spoke to that earlier. We're pursuing all options.
Because there's a lot of money there right now.
It's not there right now, though. It could be there in the future.
All right, the president's passed the infrastructure bill, has a lot of money for safe drinking water. And all it would need is go to your federal delegation and put in a request.
Hi, my name is Deborah Hansen, and I'm a resident of 109 Coleman. Many friends here. I'm here to support my friends in the Burton subdivision. I just wanted to state the fact that BPW has the capacity and has the history of some very successful projects in the Lewes town, and I'm a benefactor of one of those. If you haven't been down Coleman Avenue, come down and see what a beautiful street that is, and under the beauty of the pavers on top of the street is the beauty of the infrastructure under the street. So I would just implore some equity within the city and reinforce the request to really look at this holistically, certainly starting with the areas that are of most need, but certainly think of this holistically. We can do this in Lewes. We have the ability to do this. And I would ask you to really give this consideration in tiers of service to the citizens. Thank you.
Hey folks, I'm Pat Farina from 418 Johnson, and I agree with everything pretty much that's being said here. The only thing I want to emphasize is if whatever we wind up doing now, can we please get the entire community planned so that we don't have to keep doing this to get all the streets done. If you can do them all now, that would be wonderful. But please get them planned so that we know when things can happen and we can plan for it. That's all.
Else? All right. I think, Charlie, the one thing, we've heard some claims about, as you already talked about, the pipes in Park versus the pipes in the rest of town. Would you like to opine one more time?
Certainly, I think I was misquoted, which isn't the first time that's happened, but I didn't say that the pipes were fine. I said that the tuberculation in the sample off of Park Avenue is very similar to the tuberculation across the city in a lot of iron pipes. So I'll just say that. And I mean, I know there's a lot of discussion. Well, I'll just leave it at that, it does have some things, Austin mentioned it. It's undersized at 4-inch. It's old pipe. It's proximate to 4th Street. Those are all things to consider when you're talking about, adding the extra segment into the project.
Thanks a lot, Charlie. So I think now we go back to the board. So the question on the table is, and the agenda item is specifically related to, do we go for a supplemental? And if so, how much? And recognizing that any commitment to the project would be dependent upon the funding coming through, the bids coming through acceptable, the city reaching an agreement with the city on the repayment for the streets portion. Did I miss anything? So anything we say or vote on tonight is still got all these contingents in them, because we don't know what's going to happen at the state level, and I'm sure we will reach an agreement with the city, but so on that point, on the question, someone want to make a motion, or?
Recommend, why don't you read the recommendation?
Well, I think, going back on some of Charlie's comments, so you're talking about the size of the pipe, you're talking about the condition of the pipe, and you're talking about the proximity to the existing 4th Street project. Obviously, the 4th Street project was to gain more data, which would systematically, kind of like one of the gentlemen had said, you start to get a plan on where you're going to start, and you systematically try and plan that out, much like what we did with Pilot Town Road. We stubbed into the right-of-way, we got a sample of each one of the side streets and went from there. For us, it's an ask of the state. Again, falling in line with the strategic plan, you're replacing iron pipe. So you're going through, if you're looking at from all the pipes that are in the Burton subdivision, that is the oldest and the smallest.
The only thing else,
That pipe, define that pipe that you're talking about right now.
The pipe that would go, there's two different ages on it, but the 4-inch that would go from 4th Street down on Park, down to Johnson, wrap around Johnson to DuPont.
I sense a lot of frustration, and I understand it, for why the pipes are still on the ground. And I've expressed this to Carrie and Brenda, we cannot atone for what happened before us. And should those pipes have been replaced 20 or 30 years ago? Maybe. Having said that, we're not the only community that has deferred maintenance. There are bridges falling down across the United States. I mean, this is a problem. What we are doing is putting a plan in place to correct what was done in the past and to move forward. And we do have a 10-year capital project, and all of these streets are on there. So, as I said, the first part is the first 5 years, and then the beginning of the second 5. So I just wanted to get that on the record. So now, do we have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to proceed with what the staff is recommending.
We can't hear you.
Is that better? Okay. I'm sorry. No, I'll make a recommendation, I'll make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation for moving forward for applying for the additional funds for that segment of pipe. And
That segment being Park.
it's Park and the part of Johnson. And if we get the money from the state for that portion, that additional portion, that we proceed to go forward along, assuming that the city will pay their part as far as the roadway and so forth. So that's what I would move.
Got that, Mr. Chairman?
Do we have a second?
Second?
Question?
Any additional discussion on the motion on the table?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so it's 4 with 1 abstention. And just to, reassure the Burton folks, we are open to more discussions about how to move forward and where money could become available from. And we're not forestalling any of that. But we need to get this done as the first step. So, all right.
I don't think we have on the record the motion is passed. Yeah, did it pass?
Yeah, see, the vote was 4-0-1, so it's
Yeah.
passed.
We say the motion passed, and then we all go, yay.
The motion
Yeah, I'm
passed.
sorry, I thought I had said that.
So we don't need to do it.
Thank you all.
Sorry to disturb your meeting. We'll be out in a second.
You guys later. Great.
Brandon.
You don't have to do that one.
I almost bought it. Nice job, everybody. Thanks for your support.
Okay, moving on in the agenda.
I think you already decided on item 11 at the last board meeting. I just threw it on here, so I don't think you have to act on that, because I think you already did it. Yeah.
There was a spot on the agenda.
Yeah.
It was getting empty.
Yeah, so I think Charlie already has his direction on that one,
All right.
so that would put us at 13.
Yep. Open forum, general discussion on proposal for job description review and pay and analytics. Austin and Kim.
So we still got a large public body out there. So this item specifically, if you can remember, it was about 5 years ago, right around the COVID timeframe, maybe a little bit before. We had a firm come in and they did an analysis as it relates to our job descriptions, our organizational assessment. Press, it was when you were still as president and Darren was still here. And we felt in the 5 years, a lot has changed, and we are at kind of a pivotal point where we're going out from a succession plan, looking at replacement of current employees that are going towards the retirement time, and also expansion of our staff, support for Kim. And we felt it was a good time to kind of go out there and make sure from the market perspective, we are where we should be to remain competitive and retain staff, et cetera. So we went out, we had a recommendation from a fellow DMEC member in community for Bolton, and so we had a conversation with Bolton. They came recommended, and obviously RKL, we had some experience with RKL, and I believe everybody was happy with them. And so at the end of the day, what we did is we went back with 3 asks, right? The scope of this project was, one, to look at some sort of pay structure, like a more formal pay structure. It could be kind of like a GSA schedule. So they would come in and take a look at what we're doing now and recommend if they would have any sort of classifications. It is a little bit nuanced because we are a smaller entity, but it's something that we figured we would want to look at. Also an analysis, a general analysis, a comp to our fellow utilities. Last time they used Atlantic City, New Jersey, but it would be a comp analysis to both communities like us, but also investor-owned to see where we fall. And the last piece was looking at job descriptions to make sure and ensure that we're compliant with all aspects of all the new HR laws that are coming down the pike when it comes to exemption status, overtime status, et cetera. So that was the 3 items that we asked for a proposal for, and that's what you've received. RKL came in about $6,000 less than Bolton on that scope specifically. RKL then provided some supplemental work, which one was to do a benefits analysis, which they did say is a very tricky analysis because they're taking a look at the entire benefits package and comparing that, and some municipalities are different in comparing private and public. So that is in there, and the other one is to do an assessment on like performance evaluations. So they would give us a more formal approach to performance evaluations. Our recommendation is to move forward with the scope, which are the 3 items that we discussed, and RKL came in roughly, $12,000, I think. And then the two proposals above and beyond, our thought is we would start with this project and come back to you if we want to move forward with those proposals separately. Kim, any thoughts, comments?
You got it.
So the benefits would not, benefit analysis would not be included
We
right
can,
now?
we can. If you want to include it as part of the entire pay look, the performance process evaluation, that one I definitely want to hold off on. Sure. Because we're talking internally about changing that up anyway.
I don't know how you compare benefits, I mean, the overall compensation without having the benefits.
Yeah.
They did,
Huh?
they did say that it's harder to get accurate benefits information
I
as
understand
opposed to
that.
pay.
Yeah, but I think they must get something that would help us along, but I don't know how you really study the overall compensation. I mean, why wouldn't you try to at
I
least?
agree with it. I mean, it'd
Because
be interesting.
we have some pretty good benefits, and maybe,
It'd be interesting to see the numbers, but an apples to apples comparison, I mean, different retirement ages, different pension funds, that becomes really, I
but they're,
imagine, difficult.
they're the professionals, that's the closest we can get, I guess,
Right, oh,
so
yeah.
why not get it?
Yeah, like I said, the scope was originally those 3 items.
Yeah.
They provided the 2 offerings, and we're open to either way. We wanted to come to you with what we went apples to apples. They obviously provided a little bit more. So
How much is the benefits package?
the benefits benchmark benefits offerings is $3,325.
Yeah, I was actually more interested in standardizing the performance evaluations, but if you guys are looking at that anyway, then there's no need to do it now.
Yeah, and what my thoughts were is, if this is going to be, we discussed this with them, they asked what our timeline was.
Yeah.
We really wanted to kind of button everything up before we head into the next budget season. And so this gives us a pretty good leadway into it. So our idea was if we get started, and this is something that we want to come back from like a supplemental standpoint, then we can do that. Because we did that on the first round. We did the organizational assessment, then we kind of added on from there.
So on the performance appraisal, is this not something that we get assistance from the APPA?
Well,
I mean, they've got a big HR.
I'm not 100% positive on the APPA having that kind, because I know we do the salary survey information through APPA, and we get all that data. But I will tell you that we internally are talking about the performance evaluation piece. So if we feel like we need the assistance, I think we would come back to you. But I think we want to start internally and then come back beyond that.
I think the last.
Yeah, I actually gave Barbara a copy. It was
Yeah, I was impressed.
It was extensive.
I didn't get through the whole thing, but I read was impressive.
There's a test next week. So.
You have to wait until we get through the strategic plan review and then.
Right.
All right, so do you have a motion to?
If you're gonna do the motion to include the additional benchmark offering, it would be a motion to approve the job analysis and job description update, and you can repeat what I just repeat. Compile and analyze benchmark compensation data, compensation structure development, and the additional benchmark benefits offering.
Just to clarify, so I understand, I mean, you've got two proposals in front of you. So the question is, which proposal? It's a motion to accept a proposal, and then I would recommend is do that first, and then after that, do a motion on whether you want to do the additional benefits.
So do we have a motion to accept the RKL proposal?
What was the difference in overall price between the two?
It was,
Bolton was 19.8 for just those three.
$6,500.
Yeah.
13.2 for RKLs, and Bolton's was 19.8.
This firm was originally recommended by our previous treasurer. Jack.
RLK was recommended? Yeah, okay.
He is the L of,
RKL.
he is the L of RKL.
Oh, okay.
Since no longer the L, but
Yeah.
he was the establishing L.
Okay.
Still doing well.
Well, I move that we go with RKL's proposal. For
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, now for the second one, a motion to go for the additional services that RKL has offered relative to benefits package.
Is there a time difference or sensitivity of the full boat versus the basic?
No, we're doing this at the beginning of, right after budget season, so we have plenty of.
I think I'd like to do just the basic and see how that goes before we do benefits or anything else, but I'm open to be convinced.
Staff have an opinion?
From the call, they didn't seem that sold on the benefit package.
And I don't know if I would use it in that terms, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
it was something they could do, they just said it's very difficult to do. But
Yeah.
if you want to, we can kind of do what Barbara said, start with the original scope, and if it's something that would be additional, we can go and add it then.
Would they have any general opinion of what our benefits are good, bad, average? They give us, if,
They I haven't asked them, didn't ask them, but I'm assuming that
I
it's
would
part of
think
the
they, I
salary.
would think they would.
Yeah,
I would ask them.
yeah. Again, I mean, if we just go with the original scope, then we can expand on it as we go down that path.
It's not time constrained.
Benefits could be a major.
It is.
It's free by some pay job.
It's public
benefits. Usually public benefits better than private.
Well, we know they give a generous paternity benefit here. Don't get that in corporate.
All right, so then we'll table that till down the line?
It's up, I mean, it's the will of the board, so you can make a motion, you cannot make a motion, it's the will of the board.
Okay.
Make a motion that we do the basic package now.
So just to clear, so you've already done that. So the question is, if the decision, that's on me, if the decision is to not go forward with the benefits part right now, then there's no motion to be made, then you just move on.
We can bring it up later. So do I have a motion?
You don't need a motion, you don't need a motion.
Well, no, I mean, I want to make sure that you don't have a motion that no one's feeling strongly about. Oh. Okay, so it fails for lack of a motion. Okay. Old business, wastewater treatment long-term plan. Don't have a lot to say about this. We have met with the county again, and we're hoping that we'll have more information to go forward on a public workshop sometime around July. But at this point, It's status quo.
Nothing from the banded committee.
Okay, call to the public.
Yes?
Am I allowed to say something?
Sure.
I'm saying this as your engineer, but I just want the board to be aware that we were talking about 89,000 feet of cast iron pipe. You also have 50,000 feet of ductile iron pipe. But just so you're aware, you have 170,000 feet of PVC pipe. So you've been working on making improvements to your system. Some of that is related to annexations where we put, new annexations where we put PVC. So I just think the board should be aware that systematically through the years, since I've been the engineer, I know we've worked on a lot of different streets where we've replaced old iron pipe with PVC. So just keep that in mind.
And you can see that in the schedule going forward, too, the next 10 years.
Absolutely, yes.
It's all built.
Can you repeat those numbers, Charlie?
So you have 89, this is rough, like not right to the actual footage, but.
No, we need down to the inch.
I wanted to 2 decimal places.
Down to the inch.
89,000.2 feet of cast iron pipe, which is your older pipe, usually not lined. Then you have 50,000 feet of ductile iron pipe, which sometimes is lined, sometimes is not. When I say lined, sometimes it has a cement lining, sometimes it doesn't. And then you have 170,000 feet of PVC. And you also have some small segments of HDPE, most notably on Bay Avenue, from when we did that project 10, 12 years ago now. FYI.
Thanks a lot, I appreciate that.
Charlie, can I ask a question? The PVC, the PVC pipe. I'm concerned about that in the long term with all the talk of microplastics and stuff. How does the price of PVC compare with the price of lined ductile iron?
It's significantly less.
Which is PVC?
Yes, significantly less, yeah. You probably remember we were talking about doing the header pipe replacement out at the Wellfield, and not only was it more expensive because we had to use ductile iron pipe in that situation, but the lead time, at least right now, the lead time on ductile iron pipe is extended from what it used to be. So just keep those things in mind. But it is significantly more expensive. PVC, it's easier to install and the material cost itself is less expensive. Yeah.
Installation costs.
Yeah.
All right. Call to the press. Bill said he wasn't going to be able to be here, so.
I just wanted to acknowledge our newest council member, Amy Marasco. We swore her in on Monday, so she, like Bob, is new and ready and willing and able to serve us, so, yeah.
I was wondering who that was.
You wondered who this was. Amy Marasco, 329 Park Avenue. I'm a backup liaison to the mayor, to all of you. I have a strong background in infrastructure. I've written many SRF grants. I will volunteer my time to red team you or do everything you need, Austin. I'm very familiar with the federal grant process, also the Biden infrastructure money. So if I can help, obviously the city and BPW in any way, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Question?
Welcome on board.
Question? You are familiar with the alleged free money from the federal government?
I am familiar with that free money. Yes, I know some ways to request that money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you share that
Yeah.
with?
Yeah, so I mean, the basic way, actually, that money, so ARPA money is all allocated, SRF, we know every year. The other money is just as Tom said, is not really out there. Everyone thinks it's out. It's not, and Tom was correct. However, it's very political money. So that takes conversations with our representatives to tee up our requirements, city and BPW, and get them forward. Congressional members can identify, senators can identify preferred projects, projects they feel their communities need, and they can bring them on the floor of the House and the Senate, and they can also steer some of those funds. Every single senator's doing that. So it's just a process, and we've got a very good story. I wouldn't worry. I absolutely understand the MHI. You know, we're not in the world of grants, but for some of the projects, we have a history and a story, and sometimes the story captivates the evaluators to give you a little bit of forgiveness.
Grant writing is an art.
It's an art, exactly. So you might be able to get a little bit of free money, but on that money, Mr. Nichols, we really do have to have a political strategy, and it's better if it's BPW and the city together to go forward.
What's an approximate timeline, let's say, from today, we decide, yes, we want to go
Down to the
after it.
minute and the second. Go.
Yeah, exactly. Gee, Charlie, you set a pretty high standard.
Is it months, is it
To receive the money, or do you mean to make the request?
to make the request?
I would make the request before Labor Day. In other words, let's get in fairly early. A lot of people are thinking about the money, but they don't have their full requests in, and those have to be socialized with our federal, congressional, and senators as well. They have to be really socialized so that they can ask you and they can feel confident to go forward with those. And we are pitting ourselves just against the rest of Delaware. So we're not going up against Wyoming and Virginia. Everybody's got some of their own funds that they can allocate. So there's a dance that we have to play. And my experience is, particularly Congress and senators, I mean, in Virginia, which is where I did all of my infrastructure work, they wanted to hear the story, not just the ask. They really, right, we've got a lot of panache that is very important. And we also, remember, even though we have a high medium income, we have people on retirement fixed incomes. That's a twist to how to address the MHI. We have an older population. Older populations are at more environmental risk. So we have some pieces that I could certainly help to add to the story in grants that might move us up a little bit.
Now, do you Mike, this may be a question for you, and it may, be relevant, is do you typically see people work towards like a lobbyist to have somebody lobby in your favor when it comes to this?
I think what I would recommend is I think you have a very appealing offer to sit down and discuss, and I would recommend you take that offer.
Yeah, and I would comment on that different communities take different strategies, but your best strategy is Tom Panetta and Mayor Williams together in front. It's a stronger appeal than a paid entity. Nothing against lobbyists, they have a significant role, but when you are asking for your community, you have the mayor and the head of BPW sitting right at that table, making the story.
And we have established relationships with the two senators and the future senator, so.
Yeah, so let's sit around the table and do this.
But absolutely, I mean, all kidding aside, I think you should sit down and talk it through and develop a strategy and move forward on that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, look forward to it. And I think on finance too, is that, okay, and mitigation. So I'll work.
Cross-pollination.
Cross-pollination. Nice to officially meet all of you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, motion to adjourn? No. Oh, we are, I guess, so a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.